One of the biggest challenges facing the victim of an automobile collision is dealing with an at-fault driver that is either uninsured or underinsured. My guest today is Gregg Anderson of the law offices of Terry Bryant, and he's going to talk with us about this topic. So Gregg, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks, Cindy.
Well, Gregg, first of all, in the state of Texas, how common is it to have an at-fault driver that is either uninsured or underinsured?
Unfortunately, all too common. People for various reasons, some people because they decide or have to decide between paying the rent and putting food on the table or having insurance, don't carry insurance, and other people can afford it, but they just kind of try to game the system and decide not to buy insurance. So there are, unfortunately, a lot of folks driving around on our streets and freeways who don't have insurance.
Gregg, can you tell us how much automobile insurance coverage is mandated by the state, and is that sufficient to cover a person in your opinion?
The state of Texas mandates a minimum $25,000 automobile liability insurance policy, which of course means that if a driver injures another person while driving an automobile, then the insurance company is responsible for paying up to $25,000 to the injured person. In my view, that's really not sufficient because while that does cover the value or the injury, in many cases there are many more where it doesn't even come close. And so if a driver has no personal assets and has a $25,000 insurance policy but causes serious harm to another driver, then that injured driver is stuck with a $25,000 payment, which may not even pay for a fraction of the medical bills in some cases.
Well, Gregg, what kind of limits do you recommend for uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage?
Insurance companies will only sell you underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage up to the amount of your liability limit. So if you only have a $25,000 liability policy, for instance, you can only get a $25,000 uninsured or underinsured policy. If you have more coverage than that, what I would recommend is you get as much coverage as you possibly can, because again, you're insuring against the possibility that someone who doesn't have any insurance at all or doesn't have enough insurance is going to hit and hurt you. So if you have, for instance, a $100,000 liability policy, then the insurance company, if you ask them to, has to sell you a $100,000 uninsured or underinsured policy. And I think that's a really good idea. And I would point out that in my experience, a lot of insurance agents, particularly captured agents of particular companies, don't want to talk a lot about that insurance. I think the insurance companies tell them not to push that type of insurance because the premiums are generally quite inexpensive, and insurance companies prefer not to write that. So we see a lot of people here in our office who have their own liability policy, but their agent didn't really explain the benefits of underinsured and uninsured policies, and they don't have those limits and find out the hard way that they should have.
Now let me ask you this. What if I'm a victim of a hit-and-run wreck? Can I use my uninsured or underinsured coverage in that situation?
Absolutely. If another driver hits your car and leaves the scene and you're unable to identify that other driver, then if you have uninsured motorist coverage, it would cover you for your losses in that case. Now, written into the policy is a requirement in a hit-and-run situation that there be actual physical contact between your vehicle and the driver of that hit you and left the scene. So, for instance, if someone cuts you off on the freeway but doesn't actually touch your car, and as a result you slam into the guardrail and are hurt, you would not be covered under the underinsured coverage of your own policy because there was no contact between your vehicle and the other vehicle.
Well, Gregg, if someone has specific questions, how can they reach your office?
They're free to call us here at 800-444-5000. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Well, Gregg, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Cindy.
This is Cindy Speaker for Main Street Law.